This is Rolly Worsfold here. I'm lucky enough to be in the kitchen at the Mann residence with Audrey and Richie Mann and Al Fisher and Ruth Grubisic. I don't think it could get better than that. We haven't had snow for a few days, but it looks like it's going to start snowing. So we are very happy about that. So you guys were both born here, but Richie, I believe that you were born in Vancouver and your brother was born here?
Yeah, my older brother, Harry was, well, Henry's his real name. Harry, he was born here in 1930, and then I was born down in Vancouver in 1933. My folks went down for a holiday.
What kind of
Not much of a holiday.
Having you.
And they still hold that against you, not being a true Rossland boy?
But yeah, and I grew up with Al's younger brother, Glenn Fisher, Mo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Al, you were born here.
I was born here, yes.
Okay, and that was a little
1930.
while. 1930. Okay, so you guys grew up together.
Yeah, I ran around with Al's younger brother,
Okay.
Mo, and Chick Jones, Ken Grizzly Jones, and Andy Puchoff, and Rhubarb McKenna, and John Boucher, and who else?
There must have been some Lloyds in there.
Yeah, oh yeah, all the Lloyds lived across the back alley from us. I grew up on 2248 3rd Avenue, and that's where Neil and Sandstrom lives now.
Oh, okay.
You know the house there, yeah. And it was all field from the house all the way over to the railroad tracks, and then also the railroad tracks came up below our house to make a turn up at the Y, up by where LaFons are now. That was the Y, yeah. So, but that's all built up with houses now.
Okay, now, do you have memories before you started school with those guys? Or?
Yeah, a little bit. Chick mostly, because he just lived a block away.
What did you guys do to keep occupied? When you
we started skiing early. Well, sleigh riding probably mostly, but that came a little later, and so did most of the skiing. But we played in the snow and made snowmen, and then we walked across the tracks to McLean School, of course, and always had snowball fights and things there. It was always fun. And as we grew up, we actually had a little ski hill out in front of the house there. A little jump, we made a jump, and then same over at Chick's place. Remember that, Al? He had the little slope there.
Yes.
And then we had a pond down in front of Chick's place. And that's all grown over now, but we had a raft on the pond, and we'd kind of swim in there and stuff.
So there was stuff to do in the summer too. It wasn't just about skiing.
Oh yeah, in the summer, and of course as we grew up picking huckleberries and fixing up old mine cabins and exploring the mine buildings and things, and
the tunnels.
Yeah.
and the tunnels. You guys got in the tunnels.
Oh yeah. Our parents didn't really know much about what we were doing. They were too busy working. Like my dad was a carpenter around town, and Al's dad worked at Kamenko. What did he do, Al? I can't remember.
He was boilermaker.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was quite a fiddle player too.
Yeah, he was a great violinist too.
Yeah,
so.
and
played in the local violin orchestra.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
When you're up at the mines, you always collected blasting caps because there was tons of blasting caps. And when you got a tobacco can full, you used to go down to the local police station and turn them in.
Oh, really?
I think in Allen's neighborhood, they used to put them on the tracks and let the train run over them.
Yeah, I never found any of those, but yeah. And then we did a lot of fishing down Little Sheep Creek. We'd start, at the top end of town there, out by the old city dump, and then we'd fish down so far a day, and then we'd come back up and catch our bikes and ride back home, and then the next day we would start where we left off there, fish down a little farther. And then the next day, and I don't know, probably took about 3-4 days before we got to Patterson.
Okay.
And then we'd sneak across the border and fish over in Layton's property, and he because he was the commissioner for the county down there, so he would catch us, give us a big talking to, and then put us up in his barn overnight, feed us breakfast, and take us to Colville for a ride in his truck. And
And the border was less of a problem then, probably.
oh yeah, no, it was fun.
Yeah.
And our folks didn't have cars either, you know, and I don't think my dad got his first car until I was about 14 or 15.
So that would have been in the 40s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been late 40s.
Late
Yeah,
40s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Al, when you started school, was it Cook Avenue? Where?
Okay.
No, McLean
McLean's.
School.
Okay, it was McLean's.
The high school was down on Cook Avenue in those days, and the elementary school was up on the McLean School, that just over from where we lived. And in the wintertime, we used to mainly sleigh ride. As soon as the snow came and things hardened up on the road, everybody would be out sleigh ride.
They didn't
And-
gravel the roads in those days.
Perfect.
And after that splurge, then we get into skiing. And I lived on 4th Avenue, just over from Richie. And it was the best sleigh riding hill. And also there was an alleyway coming on to 4th Avenue, very steep. And we always built a ski jump there. So we'd start ski jumping early. And there would always have to be a couple guys down on the road to wave when it was clear, so we wouldn't get hit by a car, because you come out there jumping right across 4th Avenue. And further down were the Happy Valley Fields, and we would go down there and ski down the steep parts. And again, we had another jump hill down there on one of the dairy farms of Bob Lecluse, and that was a real good hill. We could make distances up to 80 and 90 feet. And then you'd stay there till dusk almost and hike back up the hill for supper. And during the day, skiing was more or less the sport on 4th Avenue once sleigh riding was over. And the bindings in those days were very temperamental. So you'd get them on in the morning, and you'd have to get your mother and dad probably to strap you down there into the leather straps really tight. So by noon, you come in for lunch, they'd be frozen solid. So you just walk right into the kitchen with the skis on, sit down, have lunch, and out you'd go again. And
Try that now.
once we got older and we could get hiking, and we got into the Rossland Ski Club. That was out at the end of the reservoir, so every day we'd, when we weren't in school, we'd head up to the Rossland Ski Club. And
Up the icy tunnel, remember?
And there was also a trail that we called the Icy Tunnel that went up Monte Cristo to the top of the ski hill we had on Monte Cristo. And so after we'd spend jumping and practicing slalom all day, we'd climb up to the top of that hill and ski down the Icy Tunnel. And when it was icy, it was a death trap.
It was. It'd get grooved out,
Grooved in,
like a half pipe all the way down.
You'd just be hanging on by your toenails. The big recollections I have starts from about 1943, when we were able to go out there and be members of the ski club. And the ski club had a setup where there was a good steep slalom hill. We had 3 jumps. There was one you could do about let me see how many meters. Anyway, I'll do it in feet, since my mind hasn't really changed over to the metric system yet. Too old. We could jump about 80 feet on the small jump. That's where you started practicing. Once you were able to handle that, we could go up and do a jump on the 130, 140 foot hill. And when you decide you're going to do that, and people found out, they'd all come up to see if you could make the first jump.
Yeah.
And then we had a 200-foot hill. Later on, we built this big hill. And it was designed because when we started having big tournaments here, we needed a bigger hill. And the 200-foot hill was a tough one because when the wind was blowing, you had to hit the takeoff at a certain angle, so you'd drift over onto the landing hill. And when outsiders came up there and they looked down this in-run, the takeoff, they would shake their head and say, "When do you guys go first?" So they can see if you really had to angle off towards the trees and then drift over into the hill. The next phase, there was 2 clubs, Rossland Ski Club and a Trail Ski Club. And the Rossland Ski Club was over at the end of the reservoir, and we had the setup of the slalom and the jump hills. And the competitive end of it was those sports. And then we had a field that ran down to Feeney's field where the recreation skiers skied. And then there was the trail club that when you turn off to go on the back road to Red Mountain, top of the first hill and off to the east, you can still see the chimney of the old Trail Ski Club. And they had a field below them that they used for practicing turning and skiing, and also a field below that they could tour around in. They also developed, put in a rope tow on Red Mountain that was started about Tower 3, present Tower 3, and went up to about Tower 8. And they had an old engine on that thing that worked now and again, and so we'd go over there and practice the same thing with the trail ski racers, who were mainly alpine skiers. There were no jumpers or cross-country skiers in that club like there was in the Rossland one.
Would jumpers come from other areas to compete?
Oh yes, the Winter Carnival was going strong through those years, and it would last a whole week, and there'd be competitions both in jumping, cross-country, slalom, and a half-ass downhill, and they'd go on all through the week, along with hockey games. Hockey teams would come here, and there'd be a round-robin hockey tournament. And
The Grey Mountain Grind, was that when that was?
that wasn't in the.
That's later.
That was later. That was not in the Winter Carnival, and but they'd have all kinds of winter activities, and it was a big party for 1 week, and the beer parlors would be going great. And when it came to the races, of course, there'd be a lot of betting by the Rossland people on who was going to win. And so they put a lot of pressure on the Rossland seniors and juniors to ski in these races and come through. So if you lost, you stayed away from the front of the beer parlors for at least 2 weeks, because they would really work you over for not coming through. Remember that?
Yeah.
Who were some of the names there? I mean, when you guys were doing the jumping, I mean, now the young racers have mentors and heroes. I mean, who were the people that were before?
Okay, there was Martin Johnson was
Morton.
Yeah, Martin Johnson. He was the leader of us kids building the big jump hill. Mm-hmm. You know, and that big jump hill is right where the power line goes up on the Monte Cristo now. That was right where the big jump hill was. And the smaller hill was this side of that a little ways, pretty well just across from the Block Motel. You can still see the old stove laying in the bush there from the cabin. Yeah, I think, or at least it was there a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Craig Nora,
Yeah.
he was the best jumper in town. And are there any of his family still here?
Well, Helen Boucher is still, she's in
Castle Garden.
Yeah, Helen, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she and Pat
Married McLeod and
Pat
Alec McLeod.
She's over in
Kelowna.
Kelowna, yeah.
And there was, Craig was also a great, he was a good cross-country skier.
Yeah.
and he'd be in the money most of the time on cross country as well as jumping. And the jumpers would come from Revelstoke and down in the United States and everything for the
He would jump on one ski.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he'd
Do
come
an
out and jump on one
exhibition
ski.
on one ski on the small
And
jump.
he'd put one of his daughters on his back and come off.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, no, was he a teacher too? Was he, or just by example?
His brother's a school teacher, Hans Johnson.
Well, he instructed gymnastics.
Yeah.
He did a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he got the kids out in the fall to start pre-training, which was never heard of back in those days. Old Trig got them out and worked them over and taught them gymnastics and strength exercises and what have you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That getting back to that sleigh riding. Chick Jones had the best bob of any of us. You used to buy the sleighs out of Eaton's catalog, and then you'd put a plank on the top of them and bolt it down, and you'd have ropes for steering, you know. But Chick had that big red bobsleigh, and it was the fastest sleigh of anybody's, you know. And you get four
I
people.
dispute that. We had a fast
I
truck.
dispute that too, because we had a bob hill from sliding hill from Washington Street right down, because there was no through road to Ross Glen then, so you could go right across the old footbridge, right down Washington Street, up by Allison's at the bottom, and right down to Hawkes's at the bottom of the hill. And we had the best bob run of anybody.
So it sounds like it was pretty competitive.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
the north didn't ever come down to the south, so we didn't have any competition.
The hardest part, well, 4th Avenue was probably where we sleigh rided the most, like Al was saying, but we'd always have a hard time making Sandy Ball's Corner.
Yeah.
Right down there where you just come down 4th Avenue and you turn, make a veer off to the left, or to the right going down there. Then there's a sharp corner going down to the rest of Happy Valley. That corner you could
Tear the
almost
runners
never
right
make
off
it.
the bobsled.
Yeah.
So the banks were pretty high on the side of the road back then.
Oh,
they
yeah,
were
well-
coming with graders and getting rid of the snow.
Well, they had an old Caterpillar tractor that and of course, hardly any cars around town then, because most of the guys took the co-op cars to work. Like our folks didn't have cars, so any cars that were there had chains on. There was no winter tires yet, and I think the winter tires, I don't know, there was the knobbies when they finally came out of winter tire, but up until then it was just chains on your car. So you could pretty well sleigh ride all over town. We would meet in the evenings after supper and go sleigh riding, and Shirley Tyndall, Shirley Vance would come out with us, and Shirley Pat Perkins, and
It was the thing to do.
oh yeah.
So you would have been teenagers then, or
yeah, that would have been in high school. Yeah.
And that's when the intercollegiate. You got
No,
involved with that.
I'll come to that later on. The amalgamation of the two clubs is what got Rossland going in the skiing, and it was the spark plug. The key guy behind that was a guy by the name of Ed Stiles, and Ed was a director of the CM&S company, and he liked skiing. He was involved in the Trail Ski Club. They initiated the amalgamation, the Trail Ski Club, and once we had a boat in the Rossland Club. It was just marginal that we passed it, because there was a lot of people that really didn't want to join with Trail and build a club. But we pulled it off, and they allowed the juniors to have a say, because we really wanted to amalgamate and get a big hill going, so we could race. Anyway, when we amalgamated, a fellow named Ed Stiles, who was a director of the CM&S company, was the spark plug behind it, and he could also allocate equipment, materials, and technology from the company in order to put this chairlift and the ski area together. So Ed was the man, and the first executive list original members was made up, and I think it's in the museum right now. And there were 3 or 4 key guys in the building of this. There was Ed, of course, and there was a fellow by the name of Ernie Wider, who was a designer of tramways, and he designed the lift up the mountain. And they chopped down trees right on the mountain for the towers and built the facility. All the equipment and cable and what have you came out of CMNS. And when my dad worked in the boiler shop, they put the boiler shop to work in making the chairs. So all of that was done with the keen people that wanted this place to be the biggest and best lift in the country. The hill was cut by volunteer labor, ski runs, and us kids used to be the group that packed the bolts and the nuts and all the hardware up the mountain to build the ski lift. And we'd take a swing at the cutting of the brush and trees as well at times.
Remember the log chute, Al? When they were getting the logs down off the...
Oh, yeah.
Bob Dixon and Al Dixon had this 2-man McCullough chainsaw, great big heavy brute, one of the first ones that ever came out, you know. Everybody else was still with crosscut saws, but they had this big 2-man chainsaw up there cutting down all the big trees, and then us kids would kind of do a lot of the brush cutting and stuff, the smaller stuff. But anyway, they built this log chute, 2 logs all the way down from Tower 10 down to about Tower 5. And they would get the logs over to the chute and then shoot them down there. I'll tell you, some would bust when they hit the bottom. That thing was just like greased lightning.
Richie Dean, he was the mastermind behind all the electrical system on the mountain. And most lifts, these tramway lifts, had to drive at the bottom. And he insisted it would be a lot more efficient to have it at the top, so they built a road all the way up the back of Red Mountain and had a stone boat and skidded up the motor to the top. And it was a wise move because that lasted for years and years, that whole operation.
So 1973.
Yeah.
The chair.
And then the fellow behind the lodge was Paul Jones, and they tore down an old compressor building over in the CMNS mining area. The mines were all closed by that time, so they tore this compressor building apart and built the lodge.
Didn't they get some of the bunkhouses from Juanita Dam to finish it?
No, that was long after Juanita Dam was.
Now, what about Jack? How was he involved?
Jack Mitchell?
Yeah.
Again, Jack was a generalist, and he organized, work parties, and Jack also helped marshal equipment and materials and get it on. Those were the key pushers.
Ernie Mason, he had quite a bit to it, didn't he?
No, he was just a big bag of wind.
Oh, okay.
You can't say that.
Oh yes, we can. We can say anything.
Saul Rothman, isn't he in there?
Yes, and there were all these executives at the CMNS who were all behind it, and they would take out any roadblocks that were in the way to get this done.
Yeah.
One of the questions a lot of the young people when they come here, with the history of the chairlifts. Now, from what I understand, there was a chairlift in Sun Valley, and there was one in Tremblant. But the guys from down the hill didn't even get in touch with them to ask, but they had so much confidence in what they knew building trams that they just went ahead and did their own thing. But that was like one of the first 3 in North America, from what I understand.
Norquay had one.
The Norquay had one.
Yeah.
No, that was long after.
That was long after. From what I understand, Tremblant and Sun Valley.
Well, Sun Valley did, but there's always a dispute between Rossland and Tremblant because ours was up in 47, and they didn't start theirs, I don't think, till 48.
Okay.
So we there was always arguments about that, even in the paper.
Yeah, but I believe Sam Warrington, that's one of the reasons he did his book, was to claim that we had the first chairlift.
The ski race.
Yeah.
Have you any recollection back then, Richie?
The towers, Bud Scourgy, he was another one of the good jumpers. Bud Scourgy and Eddie Shepherd, they were a couple of real good jumpers and pretty well strictly jumping. And then old Tom Calhood and Kringhog, yeah, and
they were always the judges at the jumping.
They had a lot to do with designing the big jump hill. I remember that, you got to do it this way.
Good instruction.
Oh yeah.
Now, when they were building the red chair, that started just when the snow was off the ground because they wanted it open for the 47, 48 year. That went smooth.
Oh, it did, yeah.
So they started in the spring.
Oh yeah, as soon as the snow was gone.
I remember my brother and Bud Scourgy, they kind of spelled off using the Hollaboff's skid horse, skidding out the logs for the towers. And I guess it was Bob Dixon and probably cut them down, and then these guys had the old skid horse up there and skidding them out. So and I think of that now on that steep hill, holy cow, it must have been quite a job,
Al Dixon would be able to tell you some stories.
I'm going to be talking to Al this week.
Yeah. Oh, good, yeah.
So the town must have been getting pretty excited. I mean, to get a lift up red.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I remember the float in the parade that summer before. It'd be the fall fair. They had a float in the parade, and I got a picture of it there. And God, is this really going to happen? I really didn't believe it, but by God, the next year, it happened, and we were so excited as kids.
Yeah, that was 2 years after the war finished, so there must have been a lot of positive energy around. Yeah.
Once we got the lift in, Ed Stiles, again, his goal was to develop the best ski racing club in Canada, and to do that he hired a fellow by the name of Chess Edwards from Banff, who was a ski instructor and a very good alpine racer. And so Chess came out here. They gave him a job in the engineering design office in Trail at the CM&S company, and they gave him the resources he would need to develop this club in the way of money and some equipment and things like that. So Chess's theory was teach them how to ski with a decent technique to start with, which he did right away. And by the second year, we all had good enough skiing skills to really get into racing. And we also had cross-country skiing because we had Trig Nor and a bunch of other ardent cross-country skiers and jumpers. So we competed in all four events: slalom, downhill, jumping, and cross-country. The kids around town here. Some were better in other events than others, and Chess's theory: if we're going to build the best club in Canada, we got to start racing against the best skiers in North America. Otherwise, we're never going to progress. So the first tournament we had was up here on Red Mountain. It was a slalom and downhill, and we invited the Chewelah Ski Club up, down across the border. And this club had been going for some time. And they had senior racers and junior racers. And they came up and cleaned our clocks. They were really good. A couple of the senior guys could place in the top 5 in the U.S. national championships. And the kids below them, they were very, they had peers to really learn how to ski from. So Chess across again and said, "You see how far behind you guys are? Now let's get with it." So it took us about 2 years to catch up to those kids. And to do that, Chess made a deal with the University Intercollegiate Athletic Association. And UBC, the University of BC, had a very good ski team that was coached under Peter Vida. And they competed against all the American schools. They were good enough to do that. And the American schools were importing skiers from Norway, Sweden, the countries in the Alps, and they brought in some really good skiers. And UBC just were using local BC boys, and they could compete against them quite well. So Chas invited the UBC ski team to come here and train every year at Christmas, and we'd provide them with billets and what have you. So they'd come up here as soon as their exams were over and start training. And so we'd ski with them every day we could, and try to catch up. And they also had a great cross-country coach at that time. So he would come and teach us better technique. And then...
So you hosted the Triple I.
Chess also told the universities that we will host the first intercollegiate meet of the season, the weekend after New Year's. And we'll look after all your expenses, billet you out. And so teams came from all over the western part of the U.S. mainly.
What year was that?
That was in 1948, 49. When we started to get that kind of input from the universities. So they would, and one of Chess conditions was that Red Mountain could put a team in, ski in all the events, and be in the draw. So we'd be in the draw against all the best skiers they had, and of course we wouldn't count as points as to who won the tournament, but that's how we got started. We were able to ski against these really good skiers.
Well, and they were younger too. These guys were still in high school, and they were skiing against university students.
And this opened the door up for many of us to go to university, because all the coaches were here, and they would see the talent we had. And Harry Mann, Richie's brother, and I were the first two to get offered scholarships to go to university. And we had 3 or 4 offers, but we took the one at Washington State University, which was much closer to home than these others. And I was flown over to Seattle, and I never saw a big city in my life before, so I checked that one off the list. And
Bozeman, Montana.
Bozeman, Montana, it was
too cold.
It was miles away. It'd take 2 days to get there. So we went down to Washington State. They brought us down there and look around, and they had a jump hill right on the ski campus, and they had cross-country skiing right out the back door of the gym in the golf course. They had an alpine area that was an hour drive away, up in the St. Mary Mountains in Idaho, with a big jump hill and a slalom and downhill. So they were set up to really turn out a ski team.
Didn't look like a tough choice.
No, it wasn't. And after that, many kids went from Rossland on scholarships.
But also at the same time, they started the inter-high ski meet through the high school.
Yeah.
And so that was huge, because they would have maybe 150, 120, 150 school kids from Montana, from all over the Northwest, to come and compete in the ski meet.
There were 3 really good skiers out of trail, alpine skiers. There was George Mary, who went to the Olympics. There was Pete Stiles, who was the son of Ed, the mastermind behind all this. There was Frank Willis, who was a great start, UBC, became a great engineer and was president of one of the engineering companies down there in Vancouver. And many more of these scholarship kids really did well in life.
You used to have the old Kootenai Zone tournaments too. Remember those, Al? Nelson and Kimberley and Rossland.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we'd go over to Nelson ski on their hill if they had snow. And Kimberley, they had a pretty big jump hill over in Kimberley. And yeah.
Need Alan to tell you about going to Revelstoke to ski in the tournament.
Had you met Booty Griffiths before?
Oh yeah,
that?
Yeah.
Let's say something about Booty.
Yeah.
Booty came to town in about 1945, 46.
Yeah.
And he set up a ski shop. And prior to that, you'd have to buy your skis in Eaton's catalog, and they were always warped. And
They didn't have steel edges.
Chalet skis.
People would customize their skis. I heard of they were from Eaton's, and they make them narrower.
Oh yeah.
Well, for cross country, yeah, we run them to the table.
Well, you told me that story.
Cross country skis out of. My dad did that, and
But-
we also. Oh, go ahead, Al.
But Booty brought class to the ski industry here. Clothing, good skis, and and he was also a competitor. Booty was he competed in the 4 events: slalom, downhill, jumping, and cross country. His hometown was Revelstoke, so he had a great background in this sport. And he worked on the fish boats down out of Vancouver, and every fall he would buy his stock of ski equipment and come up here and set shop up as soon as the snow came. And then he'd disappear again in the spring and down to the fishing grounds. And he did that for a number of years before he settled down here on a regular basis. But we would all buy our gear down there, and you'd have to have jumping skis, and there'd only be one pair of skis for both slalom and downhill, and cross-country skis. And I still owed Booty money by the time I graduated from university. And I eventually paid him off after the first job I got.
He was so good. He helped so many kids get skiing. You know.
He was the first guy to take me out when I got here.
Oh, is that
out
right?
into the cabins. And,
Yeah.
Now he trained. When he was in the military, he was teaching skiing. He told me those stories.
Oh,
Yeah.
And when the old glory boys would come in, most of them didn't know how to ski, so Booty would take them out on Ozeroff's field and teach them how to turn and then sell them some head skis and send them up to old glory.
So the first head, he was the head rep too, but that was a
Right.
few years later when head came up.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. I was not here. I left in 49.
Right, yeah.
Now, you continued racing all through your university days.
I did. I raced
All his life.
Yes, we know that.
Harry and I raced. Harry raced the first 2 years because he wanted to be an architect, and the architect school was not that good at Washington State University. So Harry went off down to the
Eugene.
University of Oregon in Eugene, and that was the end of his ski career. And I was there for 4 years, and I also turned out and made the track team after the first year I was there, so I was competing year-round. Skiing, cross-country running in the fall, and track in the spring through the summer, yeah.
So how many years were you away from Rossland then, altogether?
Well, by competing so much, I had to drop courses, and I had to pick up my drop courses I stayed another half year to pick up my drop. So I was at university 4.5 years.
But he coached the ski team during that time.
At the end, my last year, I was ineligible when I was trying to pick my courses up. So I was the coach of the ski team, along with George Mary, who had transferred down from University of BC to ski down at Washington State. So him and I coached the ski team that 1 year.
And you got Gordon McKenzie from Rossland to go down and be on the ski team.
Oh yeah, well, once I got down there, I talked to a lot of the guys up here. Now get with it. Get your ski skills in shape.
Did Herman go down there too?
Yeah, Herman Sneedrick
Herman, yeah.
from Trail.
Yeah, Herman went down, but he only lasted 1 year. He couldn't ski well enough to make it. And but Gordon, he worked really hard in skiing, and he dropped out of school, so he had to go back and pick up his schooling. And he came down and made the ski team, and got a scholarship out of it. In the spring, after the ski season, racing season was over, and spring skiing came, and we had really great spring skiing in those days. You know, the surface of the snow would crust up and you get up there in the morning and ski till noon just on the crust as it starts to melt. And you could go any place, up in the Squaw Basin and Granite Mountain and Gray Mountain. So we would always take off right after supper and hike up there with our pack sacks and sleeping bags. And just one night, there was about 5 of us: Bill Bradshaw, Harry Mann, Richie Mann, my brother Glenn, and myself. And we'd go up there, and Richie was lagging behind about halfway up at the rock slide. And we said, go ahead, we'll get up there in time. And you'll straggle in. Anyway, we get up there, and an hour later, no Richie. So Harry and I decided we'd better go back and see where the hell he is. Down we went, and we could hear him shouting and hollering as we got closer to the rock side. And he'd got too close to the edge, slipped, and fell down the bank. And here he was on his back, couldn't get up.
Couldn't get the pack off in a wheel well, or
You would have been there forever.
free well. Yeah.
And we'd been talking about coyotes prowling around there prior to, on the way up. Somebody saw a coyote the week before. So Richie wasn't in very good mental condition by the time we got there.
Coyote food. No, were you guys using
Well,
a bunch of the cabins there?
Yeah, well, yeah, we, us younger guys, we stayed in the Rossland cabin, and these guys stayed in Bert Fulton's cabin, which was just a little bit below. And then the thing was, we'd cook suppers and stuff, and we packed all our food up for the weekend, of course, and with these Army surplus pack sacks that we had, and sleeping bags, but anyway, the thing was to make Jello. We were pretty proud of making Jello, so
A real nourishing food.
yeah. so the big thing was wait for these guys to make their Jello and watch where they put it outside in the snowbank to cool off, and then we'd go steal it.
The Jello Wars.
Yeah.
Now, Ruth, you had another story about Booty, about some of the gear he...
Well, Alan and Richie lived in the upper end of town, and there's another clan that lives at the lower end of town, and we used to ski. In our local field was McIntyre's field, and he always had bees and honey in the off season, and so we used to trek over across the gully and ski there. And we had old found skis with steel toe pieces, and we just used rubber boots and elastic bands cut from tire tubes, and usually our hankies across the toe to hold our toes down. And but our first ski lesson that I remember was when Booty came to town. He gave lessons over at Ozroff's field. They had a ski jump over there, and lots of people used that to ski, and it was above the Cook Avenue school. But we were so pleased to go to ski lessons. We were standing there with our skis and our poles and everything, and the very first thing I remember, Booty skied up with his jolly voice, and then he said, okay, the first thing you do is to put your poles on right. You have to, none of you got your poles on right. You put your hand up through the pole, the leather, and down and hang on to the pole. And so that was my very first ski lesson that I remember. And Booty was always very enthusiastic. And through my lifetime, I was good friends with Booty and worked in the Bank of Montreal for many years. And Booty could come back from his fishing trip with all his stuff in the fall. And he would be out in the middle of Main Street in Rossland doing a snow dance at the first drop of rain. And encouraging people to come in and look at his wares. He was a very colorful character.
Yeah, we love Booty, and he would dress up during the winter carnivals as Ulos Yelnus. So that must be one of his heroes too.
I worked for Booty one winter. He had a satellite ski shop out at the ski lodge, at the bottom of the ski lodge. And so I worked in there, and he never had any prices on any of his goods. So you could, depending on who you were selling to, you would kind of judge how much you could sell this article for. And so somebody would come in for a pair of shoelaces, you'd soak them like crazy if they looked rich. And
you get a deal.
Oh, yeah. And then some kid come in and he broke something and he hadn't got any money. You know, this was Booty's way, you know. I'll give it to him.
Like Robin Hood with skis.
Oh yeah. No, he was. We had a lot of fun at that shop all winter, I'll tell you. And that's when, he took off down to Sun Valley and Mo and that was Rhubarb or what? No,
Joey Grubisic.
Joey Grubisic. Yeah. They took off.
They closed the shop.
Yeah, they were looking after the shop in town, and I was looking after the one out here. But anyway, those guys took off and met Booty. They went skiing at Sun Valley, and then all of a sudden, you know the story better than I do.
They met a guy. I met a guy that owns a ski shop in Rossland because they said they owned us.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
And they.
Yeah.
Did you ever know a fellow named Gordy Reed?
No.
He was in the race business. Just another story about Booty. It was probably 1976. I was down in Snowbird with Bobby Sawyer and a group of us, and we had Red Mountain pins on. And this fellow that owned a bunch of ski shops in Winnipeg, who was a head rep, saw that the buttons from Red and goes, I know Booty. And his wife was knitting in the room after skiing. They were tired of Sun Valley, so they gave a bunch of us Yahoo youngsters their Snowbird Lodge, all their liquor, and gave the room to us for a week. So the Booty stories continue on for us too, right? So
he's a legend.
Yeah.
He definitely was a legend. We will never forget that. Now, when he opened a shop, what year would have that been? Early 50s or?
No, it was 1948.
He first of all had a shop right under where the Allen Hotel was, and there was a cleaners there, and then
right beside the bus depot.
No,
That was his first one.
No, on the other side by the Allen Hotel and the cleaners. And the cleaners had a tailor.
Oh.
And so people could go into Booty's shop, and he just rented a space there with skis in, but he would measure them up, and the tailor would make the ski pants. And so my very first really professional ski pants came from the tailor in the cleaner shop.
Beside the bus depot, and of course that's where we got our Trail Times, and Mo had the Trail Times.
Well, he could have been there first. I just remember him when he was over at the cleaners on the other side.
Right,
and then he built the other shop.
Yeah. Well, then he moved down to beside Delich. He had the shop down there too. Yeah. And then moved over to where...
Maybe he just rented a space every time he'd come back to fall.
That could be,
he probably just rented what was available.
I remember we just used to hang in his shop after school, pick up the papers, the Trail Times, because Mo had the paper route, and I helped him with that, and we'd just torment Booty and get out of here, you guys.
Perfect. Now he was famous for ski wax too.
Oh yeah, well, our best climbing wax, we had 2 climbing waxes that we used. One was Red Wonder and High Speed. And because none of us could afford skins, and so you'd wax the skis up, and so you could hike up the hills and stuff, and they were good. And I've got a
I bought you that.
fast ski.
The-
Fast ski,
That was the base on the wood ski.
Grant was closing the ski shop,
yeah.
and he had a box of stuff from the basement. It was Booty's stuff, and I bought him a thing of wax for 33 cents.
Okay, so it had to be special. Oh, yeah.
Well, he
You
said
got
it
there,
was.
Richie.
The old
He
skis.
said it was.
Once we started getting laminated skis and that, then they would come without steel edges, and so I remember having to screw on lots of steel edges when we were kids. Dad would run them through the table saw. He had a little rig on the table saw, and then we'd screw all these little. They came in short pieces, and you just screwed them on with screws.
Weird.
And then you'd have to put a lacquer on the bottom of them to hold your gliding wax and kick waxes. And fast ski, that was the name of this piece.
Yeah.
We had a graphite one too, remember?
Yeah.
Before this, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I remember my mom and dad, our first skis, hickory ones, came from Eaton's catalog, and my dad cut the grooves and my mom screwed the steel edges
Is that
on.
right?
And then we would bring them home and one would break off and Mom would be down there, and my mom hardly ever left the house. She never even went to the grocery store. She ever gave us a list and we went, but she was on top of everything, and I don't know how they encouraged us to ski, because we were the last of 7 kids. And my dad used to drive us to the ski hill in the back of his truck we'd pick up all the kids on the way, and at the end of the day we would ski home, and we would come up the icy tunnel, ski down Washington Street, across the footbridge down Washington Street. We'd get home about 5 o'clock, and my mom would come out, and we would be snowballs from top to bottom because we had all wool clothes, and she'd patiently get the broom and sweep us off.
One at a time.
Yeah, and then we could come in the house, and our mitts used to be wool mitts, and they used to be like claws from hanging onto the poles. But they had so much patience with us kids. They never skied.
No.
Night skiing was a big thing too when we were young, because about 3 nights a week at Red Mountain they'd have night skiing, and so after supper we'd hike out, and if we were lucky enough that a car was coming along, because the cars in the old days had these bumpers on that you could hook your ski poles on and get pulled out.
Bumper jumping, they call that.
Yeah, because there was no sand on any of the roads,
that's
so
right.
you would just hook onto a car and get either.
It must have been the early 80s when they stopped night skiing on Red, because that was a great memory for us too.
It had just quit when we moved back.
Yeah.
Grand Forks.
Well,
Yeah.
when we moved back from
And
Grand
it
Forks,
just
yeah.
quit 'cause-
yeah.
That made a
Yeah.
huge difference on the
Yeah.
training time we got to
Oh
I
yeah.
bet it did, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And me.
That was a huge event.
That's where we learned to telemark too, and all that at night up there.
I
Yeah.
remember Albert Loft, one of our teachers in school, and Monday morning most of us would be half dead. And all you guys do is to come to school and to rest up for the weekend, he said.
You had that right. Now, 1948, they built the weather station on Old Glory, and it was the highest weather station in the world. And
Yeah.
I've just found out from Ron Walker's book. And when it burned down in 1968, and I have some questions for you, Richie, about that. Then the one in Vermont, which was Mount Washington, became the highest one, and it's 1,000 feet lower than Old Glory. So that was something a lot of people didn't know, that it was the highest weather station. Now, I've heard that when the boys they called them the Met boys, meteorological boys.
Right.
They would take the chair on Red up to Tower 5 and then traverse. It was a 14-mile walk in there.
Yeah, they would hike up through Squaw Basin.
Yeah, and they could use the yodel in, and
Yeah.
then they had the Plumen.
Halfway cabin.
Yeah, the
Plumen
ridge cabin,
the
yeah.
ridge cabin.
Yeah.
Now, did you know some of those guys?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew most of the earlier ones. Yeah,
Okay.
there was a few that came later that I didn't know, but Ron Walker, Lyle Fleming, Bart Dudley,
Al Latch,
Al
Al
Latch,
Latch,
yeah.
yeah.
Stan
yeah,
Bremner.
Yeah. Yeah, Stan married Caroline Taylor.
I
who
was a
went to school
bridesmaid.
with, and-
I heard those
Oh,
guys
is that
were,
right, eh?
they were the charmers in town. Like when they were working, that was a cool job to
Oh,
have.
they were our heroes.
And the heroes, and they'd come into town, and they'd always have a room at the
Did
Alamo
you date
Hotel.
those guys, Ruth?
Oh yeah,
Did they party at all?
oh yeah.
Yeah, if you were lucky enough to get invited up into that room, it was.
And they married, most of them married telephone
That's-
operators from
yeah,
Rossland.
yeah.
Because that's what they would do. They had the telephone line
Yeah.
up there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, no, they had the old, where you just had the telephone in the house and you rang, and then they had so they had all the operators in a building where the senior citizens is.
Okay.
And so there was lots of young single girls, and so the guys were there. I went up with a fellow from Saskatchewan. Most of the weather guys that come from the prairies couldn't ski, and I remember taking, I forget his last name, Glenn. He's in Ron Walker's book. And I'm going up, and I remember when I got up in the base, and then we were going to go up to the top of Gray, and I said, well, we'll just go like this. And Glenn said, no, I have to go from one ribbon to the next ribbon because he was so afraid of getting lost. I couldn't get him to go any other direction. He had to follow the ribbons that the guys had marked.
Yeah.
And so that's, and I just remember thinking, oh, that dumb guy.
And Wayne Severson, he grew up in Rossland, so and he was one of the later ones. And so.
But in 1968, it was historically cold. The records show that the early part of January in '68, the record holds the records for those dates. Now you were around when the rescue went on, when the weather station burned down.
Yeah, I was working at Red Mountain and running a pommel lift. And it was 35 below that morning. It was the coldest morning. Yeah, Audrey was working in the office at the time, and we just had a heck of a time trying to get any lifts going that morning. We couldn't get granite going. We finally couldn't get red going. We finally got the pommel lift going, and we ran that, but we didn't run it too long that day because we had to keep chasing people inside. They're getting frostbite.
Oh yeah,
so,
when I patrolled at the hill, there was only one day we had to close, and it was
Yeah.
minus 30 plus,
Right,
and so
yeah.
that was even colder.
Yeah.
Now that explains why so much coal was going into the
I
furnace
guess,
up on
yeah.
Old Glory, and
Yeah.
that's quite a story.
Yeah, I don't know much about the rescue other than Wayne Severson was involved in it, and I think somebody else, but I can't remember who went up with him.
The
but,
weather there was the lookout that saved his life.
Well, he crawled.
Yeah.
He got out and he crawled up to the lookout. And,
Yeah, right.
But he didn't have any way other than what he had
Yeah.
on with him to
Yeah.
He had his
keep
underwear
warm.
on,
Yeah.
supposedly,
Yeah.
And
So-
apparently Wayne, they had a sleep bag, and Wayne crawled in the bag with him and huddled up to him to keep him warm and stuff. And I do remember that part of the story.
I remember when Al Latch was up there. I remember that most snow they measured all year came in May. They had the biggest snowfall. Well,
Huge snowfall.
amount of snow for the whole month happened in May.
Yeah.
Is there any difference between back then and now with snow cover?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
What about
varies.
wind? Is it a windier town now?
No, I don't
No.
think so.
Okay.
You don't-
It's just the snow cover because in April you go up into the Squaw Basin and you get those nice crusts on top of the snow. Now you don't get that anymore.
And the odd time people skied on the 24th of May on the backside of
You
Red.
wanted to?
And I remember going up and on our second story and washing windows and having 20 feet of snow or 22 feet of snow in the wintertime. But, I mean, we had some low snowfalls too.
No,
but
we've had some big snowfalls
Yeah.
here since we've moved back here.
Well, 68, 69
68,
was the
69.
big.
Yeah, that was the same year that happened that the school auditorium caved in. The roof was the auditorium, and our kids were going to have an assembly that morning, and just lucky that it happened at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and otherwise we would have had a terrible disaster.
Yeah.
And Chuck Latoria lost his barn that same winter, and Feeney's lost their garage. We lost our barn. I was working at Red Mountain at the time. I came home and
I didn't hear a thing.
and I had a couple of for lunch. I came home for lunch and.
You were going to take. I was going skiing.
Yeah, she was going to go skiing, and
you said, "Forget
don't
skiing,
bother.
come
I'm
and
going
see
to get
this."
see if I can get
didn't
anything
hear it.
alive. And I had some calves in the barn, and
Yeah.
and 2 of them were killed. And cut the milk cow out, but the damn barn caved in. So we all lost buildings out here that winter. We had 7 feet on the ground.
So that would have been 68, 69?
Yeah, that's the year we put this house up.
Okay.
And
68, 69.
yeah, and I got a picture of Audrey on the roof here. It was 6'6" on this roof.
I'm holding baby Philip.
Yeah.
I'm on the roof. I look like I'm on a road.
That's the only time I shoveled this roof off because I was worried because these beams were still green and I didn't want them
Warped them a
bowing it. Yeah, I didn't want them to
Yeah.
bow while they were green, and so I shoveled it. But since then, I've never shoveled it. And we had that much snow once more in '93, about 7 feet on the ground
There
that
was
year
a lot,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's a lot of snow because sometimes we got cold weather and it never thawed. But
right.
mostly in Rossland, you have a big snowfall, then you have mild weather, then
Yeah.
it settles, and then
Yeah.
it settles again. But the year that it doesn't, it's cold, then you get this huge
Yeah.
amount of snow.
Yeah. Well, I had shoveled that first winter. I was really worried about my old barn because I had shoveled it once already at the barn. I was going to shovel it again. My day off was Tuesday, and this was a Monday, and it caved in on the Monday.
Bad timing.
Yeah.
No, the years that Al was gone, now Wilf
Yeah.
Gibbard was bringing all the supplies up to the weather station. And there was it was an all-year job, all-summer job, because they were bringing 30 to 40 tons of
Yeah.
supplies up there.
Yeah.
Now the old Gibbard's Trail, you must have known Ruth
Oh, yeah.
and Wilf really well.
Quite well, yeah. Actually, Wilf's the first guy that showed me how to pack a horse, and they're really great people, and they lived all summer out at Gibbard's camp there, and of course they lived in in town, and eventually bought a little farm down in Happy Valley, and but yeah, they're great people. In fact, Ruth used to give me a hard time. I planted when we first moved down the old house down beside Feeney's there. I had planted some reed canary grass, and I read about it and how much it grows and how good a feed it is. So I planted a bunch down there, and I had this little International Cub tractor. It's one of these little small tractors, you know. And Ruth always give me a bad time. God, when this grass started growing, you know, you're going to have to wear a hard hat when you cut that with that little tractor. But it would grow 6 feet high.
It was
and
tall, wasn't
it's
it?
still growing out here now.
Yeah?
Yeah, in the summertime,
Oh,
it's
okay.
growing
Is it?
out here. Yeah. It's good feed. Yeah.
She was very popular with the weather guys up there too because of all the goodies that
Oh, yeah.
she
Yeah.
sent up
Yeah.
up there too.
Yeah, and Wilf was a great guy. And you know, in the wintertime, he had a little tractor, and he would go around town plowing snow and stuff. And also in the fall and the spring, you'd see him fixing roofs around town and always climbing around
He's
on roofs
handy.
and things. And
Yeah.
they're just great people. And we'd stop out there and have supper with them sometimes, or they'd stop in here or whatever.
You was bringing your horses up Old Glory same time at all?
No, I didn't have any horses here then.
Oh, you didn't
No,
have horses then?
No, I
Okay.
didn't get into that. That was in the 50s when I was in East Kootenays. I had horses over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we were kids, we used to hike to Old Glory all the time. And sometimes in the wintertime, sometimes in the summertime. And Alan's got some good stories about racing up there through the basin. But I always remember Wilf we'd have big packs and everything, and he would bring a load up to the top, and he'd always carry everything back down so we could be free to run down the hill afterwards. But the guys would always meet you with tea and
Yeah.
good things, and yeah, we had good fun. Many a time we went up there. I hiked up there in the wintertime with Chuck Clark one time, and I can't think of the name.
Yeah, that's
Remember,
That's
Audrey,
it.
when took you up, and Will said,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'll take her up on horseback." So
What was my horse's name? Velvet.
no, oh yeah, Velvet.
It
Yeah,
was
you were on
Velvet.
Velvet. Yeah, yeah.
But I had sandals on, and I had jeans on. And Will said, bring a jacket. And I said, no, it's warm. It's perfectly warm. I won't need one. He said, well, I'm going to
beautiful
bring you
day,
one
yeah.
anyways. Anyways, we get up there, and this thunderstorm comes up. And we're sitting in the cabin. I'm just gonna have a sip of my wine. I think I
Wine?
might have had one sip. They come rushing. Got to get these horses off the mountain.
Yeah, well, sparks were
And
flying off.
but it was a big storm, and I. What about me? Well, anyways, Richie took 2 horses, and Wilf's got 2, and I'm running behind in my sandals and my jeans but I have Wilf's jacket on. He luckily brought it, and I could feel the electricity
Oh
going
yeah,
up
you
my
could see
arm.
the sparks on
scared.
the wires. Yeah, yeah.
I was running like mad. Finally, we get down, halfway down,
Down onto the unnecessary ridge.
and
there.
along comes, I think it's
Nancy
Nancy,
Green, yeah.
and she's got nice little crisp white shorts on. Their hair is all fine. Mine, I'm so wet.
She's dry as a bone, and we
And
were
we're
so
like wet.
It's a storm
It's
just
so-
right there.
That was scary.
When we were kids,
That
we
was
also
scary.
always, the junior kids always had to go and brush the ski hill. So in the fall, we just had work parties and volunteer parties. So they were always good fun. And I remember being up there, and there was a low cloud because the top of the mountain was, and the bottom was clear.
Yeah.
And I remember being up there with Jimmy Douglas, and the plane came over, and it was very low, and Jimmy was very excited. He said, "Where's that going in this cloud and everything?" And we were all up there, and sure enough, we heard kerpow. And that was the plane that was missing. They never found it.
yeah.
And Wilf,
Yeah.
many years later, took a different route, bringing the horses down from Old Glory, and he went down a different draw, and he found the wreckage of that plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I've
That,
seen.
that was before they had this highway out here. Yeah.
I remember hearing that story. Yeah.
That was one thing too when the hill first opened, Red Mountain first opened. I think a junior pass was $10 and a senior pass was
It was.
$20.
$10 and $2.50 for a membership.
Oh, could be. Yeah.
That was
Okay.
that way. You just
Yeah.
begged Mom and Dad, get us a season pass. That's all we want for Christmas.
Yeah.
We don't have to have anything else. Just
And
get us a
$20
season
for
pass.
seniors. And then,
So cheap.
but Saturday afternoon, juniors weren't allowed on the hill. We'd have to.
No, it's Sunday afternoon.
Sunday
yeah,
afternoon.
As I said, what did they say?
Saturday.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon, yeah. And so we'd spend Sunday morning helping them pack the hill, and then we'd get kicked off at noon, so we'd head back over to the Rossland ski hill and ski there for the rest of
We did it
the
usually.
afternoon.
We usually had a course
What's
set
that?
up at 10, at 10, and so we would practice
Oh,
and we'd
okay.
count the number of people in the lineup, and if it got below 50, we'd make a dash for the bottom because they would let us on. If the lineup was short.
Al, when you got back, what year did you return back to Rossland?
Oh, you didn't come back to live ever.
But you were
Yeah.
coming back and forth.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
stayed pretty active with you competed in many sports, but you did a lot of cross country skiing too.
Yeah, after, like I was in the U.S. when I graduated, so I went and took a job with RCA Victor. They used to be a electronic company.
Oh yeah.
And so I ended up going through their 2-year training program, and ended up in New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey. Not a very nice place. So I got tired of the.
And wait a minute, the draft came up, the U.S. draft.
Oh yeah, and so the U.S. draft came up, and I thought,
You wanted
I'm
to.
going to get out of here. I'll go back to Canada.
Oh yeah, they might take you.
So I came back to Vancouver, and I worked there throughout my whole career.
But he
And,
coached
when I
the
came back there, the UBC ski team that was once a really great team under Peter Vida, it had sort of deteriorated. So I took it over and resurrected the team, and we started being able to again compete big time against the U.S. universities.
I remember Al used to bring them up here and
Oh, yeah.
train.
We'd come up here every
We'd look
Christmas
out.
and train.
See them jumping
Yeah.
around the field.
A
So
few,
that was my hobby for 13 years.
a few years ago, he was inducted into the UBC Hall of
That's
Fame
right,
for
yeah.
a coach. Yeah.
But again, I recruited a lot of my ski racers from Rossland and the rest of the province. And it was a great hobby because, you know, when you get older, you want to be with young people. They're energetic and they
Yeah.
keep you going.
Well, it's worked for
And,
you
uh,
guys. There you go.
And I also started a young kids track club down at in Vancouver as well. After I finished coaching the cross country, the alpine and cross country jumping team at UBC. Yeah, it's great to hang out with the young.
Well, when you guys were really instrumental in the early days of blackjack too.
Yeah. I remember Roger Crisfield, and he had bought the first skidoo, an old twin track skidoo to set tracks. And
Marty Steinruck.
No, this is
No.
Roger.
No.
Roger, yeah.
What year would that have been?
80,
No.
84, 85 maybe,
Okay,
somewhere in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was the first track setting that we did. Audrey and I were living in Grand Forks. We were farming over there at the time, but we didn't move. But, you know, we'd come over and go skiing, so we kept in touch with the early club, but we weren't really involved with it then. And we moved back in '87, and that was the year after they bought the first snowcat from Red Mountain.
Yeah, that's right.
And Al Dixon was involved with that, running it, you know, and then
That's
when
the
I-
one out there.
yeah.
Still got that
And
antique.
Philip, our son, he was living at the house here that last year before we moved back here, and he was going to college, Selkirk College, and took a year off and did the track setting, learned how to run the snowcat, and did the track setting with Al's help, and then there was something about Al, you know, he was getting older then, and when we moved back and I took over running it, you know, Al was such a big help, you know, mechanic wise. And, you know, if I had any problems, you know, and you needed two guys, or somebody to climb underneath it and somebody on
He was
top.
always there.
Yeah, he was there, you know, and he'd always give me a bad time about leaving it too late in the fall to do the maintenance because, you know, I was busy, you know,
Yeah.
self-employed all summer. I didn't have time, but anyway, he was a great guy, Al. Yeah.
But he would be, how old would
He's
he be
96
then?
now. I
Yeah.
guess.
So that would
Oh,
be,
yeah.
yeah, he'd
Yeah.
be
Oh yeah, I mean he was
68 or so.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, there's something about keeping active. I mean, I'm out there. I see Richie skiing still. I see you guys out all the time. I see you on your bike, Al, and I see you skiing. Something's working right in this town.
Can I tell you something about bikes in the old days?
Okay. with the big wheels.
No, but we had. I remember my first bike, and I think I was about 14 or so when I got my first bike. I had been helping Mo with a paper route and saved up some money. I had $8, and Chick already had a bike, and I think Alf Hawkins had a bike.
Coffee route.
And but anyway, I wanted a bike, and
Sure.
anyway, there was a bike in the paper for $16 in trail, and my dad said, you know, money was tight in those days, you know, and Dad said, okay, you've got $8, I'll put in the other $8. We ran down, my dad and I ran down the pole line to trail, and got the bike, and then he had enough money to catch the bus back home. We didn't have a car yet, and I got the bike. I still remember. I was so proud of my dad for doing that for me. You know, yeah. But anyway, we used to take our bikes, and these were just coaster brakes. They were single speed. You know, you didn't have gears in those days. But we would take our bikes over to Christina Lake on the Cascade Highway, and then we'd go over that way, and then come back through Kettle Falls because it was a paved road there. It was easier to come home that way. But anyway, this one time, Alf Hawkes and I, we thought, you know, we should make a tandem bike out of our bikes. So we took the hind wheel off of one of the bikes and put the forks of the other, front forks of the other bike on there, and we had our tandem bike. You know, it had 3 wheels, but it was a tandem bike. So we went over to Christina Lake with this thing, and it was good. It worked just fine. Yeah. You just couldn't take too sharp a corner because I can't remember what it was now. I'd have to figure it out. But if you turned too sharp, bike would lean it out, and the other one would be leaning in. But you know, going down, we would make it as far as the second summit after school at Friday night, and then there was a little telephone shack at the top of the second summit. So we would bunk in there overnight, and then wake up the next morning and then coast down to Christina Lake. And then in those days, all gravel road. It was the only road over to Christina Lake, unless you went through the States, and it was all washboardy. And you know, your hands would just be. You'd try to open them when you got to the bottom and be all stiff. But we used to hang trees on the back of our bikes so we wouldn't burn our brakes out.
So the mountain bikers on the seven summits don't have anything on that.
We must have been in pretty good shape.
I would think so.
Yeah.
We used to bike to Big Sheep Creek because I used to go out with Barbara Beckman all the time. And we used to bike from Rossland, and we just had the 2-pedal. Yeah. And over the but I can remember the washboards in your hands being all funny by the time you got to Big Sheep Creek.
Yeah. I remember having to push it up the second summit quite a few times.
I never went over the second.
Have to push.
Yeah.
But I think we were able to ride pretty well up to the first summit, but it was that second summit that was the hard one. So by the time we got to the telephone shack, you know, we were pretty beat. But then we'd catch the dances at
Christina.
Kingsley's. They had the thing out on the
pavilion.
Lake there. Yeah, the pavilion on the lake.
Yeah, piles.
And get some dances in and have a bunch of fun, and then climb on our bikes Sunday morning and pedal home through Kettle Falls all the way home.
Is Rossland as much fun as it used to be?
I don't know. You know,
we're not young enough to find out.
Oh, you can put an observation.
Well, I think the kids now, everything's so organized for them. You know, our parents didn't have time to do anything with us. We were on our own.
And we didn't have television, so you had to go out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could entertain yourselves.
Yeah, we played kick the can at night. SWAT the can, baseball. Al played a lot of baseball. I didn't play too much. Lacrosse was a big thing in those days.
What about the trains? I mean, I heard stories that people could take the train up from trail to go skiing down part way and stuff like that. Was there any truth to any of that stuff?
Oh yeah, like
before
bobsleds. You put them on the back of the train and got them pulled back up again.
Okay, so that happened.
But the train, you know, it was 25 cents. There you go.
Yeah, anybody
trail or go down.
Yeah, the Kaminko guy. You guys were able to go on picnics because your dad worked at Kaminko, or Consolidated.
And they'd have the CMS picnic in Nelson. So you'd hop the train up here and down the trail and transfer, and then over to Castlegar and Nelson.
Yeah.
That must be great.
But I can remember going to Vancouver by train.
And the women would, the women would have all the lunches and everything, have to load all the kids, and the men would head right for the beer parlors as soon as they got off the train in Nelson. And they'd be all tuned up by the time it left, or they wouldn't even get home for 2 days, you know.
You had a designated driver. Perfect.
Yeah, going to Vancouver then was, we did that 3 or 4 times because my mom and dad's parents lived in Vancouver, and so you would catch the train and trail and switch
transfer
again at
Castlegar,
and then over to Penticton, transfer again,
go over the Coquihalla.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
And then 24-hour trip.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun on that
train. I bet it was.
Yeah.
We missed the trains.
Yeah, because you could walk all along the coaches, and then mom and dad always had enough money to have one meal in the dining car, which was special.
I bet it
Other
was.
than that, it was a big basket of food. Yeah.
What about the socials? Like now there's Winter Carnival and there's all kinds of events, but Rossland was always a real social town too. So there must have been big dances. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys
Every Saturday night. Yeah, yeah.
Big dance,
In trail.
Salmon Trail.
Salmon Trail.
3 dances in trail on a Saturday night. There was a Legion, above the
4-H.
The Serenaders.
The
the
4X Club.
yeah, but the
No, no.
Serenaders played above the
KP.
drugstore down there.
Yeah.
That hall. They
Down-
still hold dances there.
Down by the swimming pool.
That was the Legion. That was the Legion one. Yeah. But the Serenaders played above the drugstore.
KP Hall.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
I don't know
KP
why I
Hall.
know that.
And then the 4X at the there.
Downtown Rossland, there were some pretty fancy places. The Rossland Club.
Yeah, that was
That was
older
before I
people.
That was
Yeah.
already had burned down in the early days.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when we were teenagers, there wasn't much dances in Rossland. We'd go to trail.
Except the school had at least
Yeah.
4 dances a year.
Oh, I guess so, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that was the
Yeah.
big thing.
Right, that's
yeah.
right, yeah.
And then we used to go to the
Yeah.
trail kids.
Yeah, trail, and then, we'd go to Weimar, this was in our later teens.
And
We got
play
cars
more
in.
when we got old enough.
Playmore, yeah. and the Canard, there was another dance hall there. Yeah, yeah.
Now, as we get older, some people don't catch on to new things. But how old were you when you started playing the fiddle?
70.
70.
Yeah.
Now,
I lied.
we started when we were kids. Richie and I.
Al and I, old Ed Hobson was a real good fiddle player in Rossland. So this one year, our folks bought us violins, and so we had to walk across the ballpark and go to lessons at Mr. Hobson's place, and I think we both. I don't know about you, Al, but I wanted to learn how to fiddle. And I was about 7, and you must have been 10, eh? Yeah.
Something like that. And,
Yeah.
and old George, he would only teach us the classics to start.
George, yeah. No, George. What
George
was-
Hobson.
George Hudson.
Okay, the boy's name, Ed.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And it was boring as hell. Anyway,
Oh, it was awful.
I must have gone for 6 years.
You're kidding.
Yeah, because
I only went one summer.
no, I played the fiddle for 6 years
Oh.
under duress.
stressful.
And even at church.
And playing the church orchestra and all this and that. Anyway, I cut into my skiing time on Sunday, so I'd go there with my ski clothes on and the violin and my skis and poles, and I'd tell my mother, "You take the violin." As soon as I finished there, I'd get the skis and tear up the mountain. And when I had to play in recitals, my brother Glenn, Mo, and Chick Jones used to get in the back, and they'd start making
Oh no.
faces, and I had to concentrate on the violin recital. And also, I got so much ribbing from the rest of the guys that played when I was playing ball and all kinds of things, and I'd have to go through the ballpark to get over to the over to the lesson.
Yeah.
Maybe you could sign up Al now for the.
Well, I didn't realize he played that long, because I only played that one summer in about 4 months, and Mom and Dad said, well,
So
you're
there's
not
still
practicing.
hope for Al.
Oh, yeah.
So
I got to hear him play, because
Well,
if
Alan's
he
got to
had-
tell you what he did with his violin.
Okay.
So anyway, I was
got
taking
next
so
one.
much abuse from my peers that my mom and dad went on a holiday, and I sold the violin. And when they came back, they almost had a fit. That was the end of the violin career.
So good advice for young people.
So you
But it did me a lot of good, because one thing, like I never had that probably 4 or 5 months, and I didn't practice. And then I always wanted to play. I always wanted to learn how to fiddle all these years. And then when I retired and got laid up with my leg, and my dad passed away, and I got his old violin and bought a book in Nelson, a beginner book, and the one thing I remember is how to hold it, because remember old Hobson was so strict and he wouldn't let us use a shoulder rest. We had to hold it. My violin was too damn big for me. And but I remembered how to hold it, and so it really came easy. So when I turned 70, I took the fiddle camps in Castlegar, and boy, met some people there, and we've got our fiddle group going and just having a ball.
No,
Oh yeah.
No,
it's
over
quite
the
fun.
years, people participating. We're always trying to get young people involved with the Winter Carnivals. You guys Audrey and Richie were playing at the Winter Carnival, and that's great. Is it easy to get younger people to join on, or is it's always been the same, or
To the fiddling, you mean?
yeah, or just to
Oh, to
get
anything?
people to participate like you still do, both of you.
Well, I think, Al, you can talk about blackjack. The young people that are stepping up to the plate now are fantastic.
Oh yeah. We've got a really good
We don't have many.
executive now.
Yeah,
It almost went down the tubes a couple of years ago, but the young people stepped up to the plate,
that's great.
taking it over.
Yeah.
They own it.
Yeah.
Well, you put
it's-
your time in to do all that and
Yeah.
get it going. I mean, the community owes a lot to you for that.
Al's done an awful lot to getting our race stadium
Yeah.
and all, and the racing
Working
program
with
going.
Beaumont.
Yeah, and getting the racing program going.
Well,
yeah.
no, Beaumont, they allow us to use their land, and we have a contract with them, but we have to pay rental for the.
Do you direct with the prince in Germany?
No, there's a fellow that looks after their holdings in Sycamoose, and we deal with him.
Okay.
And then they have another office over there just before Salmo, and those are the people, really the working people we deal with. And they've been good people, you know. But I understand they're going to, that piece of land is being bought by some other company. It's not a Canadian company either, but they wouldn't tell us who. Because this year I tried to put this new 5K racing loop in so we could hold international races. And there was a section of 200 meters on their land. And I couldn't get the trail to the width I wanted because they said that this company has already checked out the property and we just can't allow you to cut these trees down and build the trail. So I'll have to deal with whoever owns it next year to try to finish this off.
But to come to a point where you have such a successful NORAM like this year,
Yeah.
it says a lot. And it was,
They were very impressed with our new trails.
Oh, they were. You know,
Oh,
talking
yeah.
to all the racers on the main street of Rossland,
Yeah.
they couldn't say enough.
Yeah.
No, it was very good.
Yeah.
No, you got a Ron Shearer story, Richie?
You know, I helped them a little bit with their cabin. It was Ron Shearer, Gordon Borkus, Corky Perkins, Ian Corner, who lives in Nelson still, and Mike Conchie was involved a bit too. But anyway, there was a bunch of us staying up in the cabin, and Alf Hawkes, my buddy, and I were there, and anyway, we were up in the upper loft, and you could look down on the stove, and Mike Conchie was cooking some tomato soup on the stove there. So we skied with carbide lamps. Our fathers were miners, you know, and these carbide lamps, you'd put carbide crystals in and put a little bit of water in with them and make a gas, and you'd light it and it had a little jet, so you would light that. So we would ski with these lamps, and you couldn't ski too fast because they'd blow out. But anyway, Alf Hawkes got a piece of this carbide out of one of the lamps, and he hucked it down into the soup. It landed in the soup, and when Mike Conchie wasn't looking, he turns around and here's it going around in his soup. We're just killing ourselves.
Nice.
But anyway, it was a good cabin. They were a real good